Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael Romine, and this is the Houston Grass Podcast. Here we are in late September, and we've gotten our second legitimate cool front here. I was up early this morning, and my truck said 64 degrees. So in South Texas, that is fall for us. So with those cooling nights come a few grass maintenance things that need to be taken care of. Those temperature swings when we warm up and cool off, and as wild as it can fluctuate here, that does have some impacts on obviously our plants, trees, and our grass. So you're here to listen to me talk about grass. The first thing I think of every year when I get those first cool fronts, other than being in a better mood because the oppressive heat and humidity are gone for a little bit, is brown patch, the ugly yellow circles that we get in our yard this time of year. We'll talk about that a little bit here in this episode. One of the best things about fall is when that oppressive heat does back off a little bit and those temperatures moderate. It is another excellent time of year to plant grass in this part of the world. Everybody asks, well, when is the best time? And we always say spring, March, April, and May. That is the best time of year to plant grass. If I had to say a worst, it would probably be June, July, and August in this part of the world. Second best time of year is the fall. And when I say fall here, of course, late September, all of October, November, even parts of December. A lot of times we don't get our first real frost until mid-December or so. So those frosts start knocking the grass back and sending it into dormancy, which is also fine. Still, I would say dead middle of winter is a better time of year to plant grass than the summer. Another good thing that fall brings about is a good time to plant grass. It's easier on the grass, easier on the people laying the grass, whether that's you or the contractors, and easier on the water bill because you don't have to water near as much as you would in the summertime. We are open. A lot of people are surprised when they call us. People do call and are surprised that, hey, are y'all, how long are you going to be selling grass? And at first it kind of takes us aback because we're always here. We're here pretty much all days except for major holidays and right through the winter time. And the reason for it is you can plant grass year round here. So we're always here to answer questions or sell you whatever fertilizer or fungicide is needed for that time of year or any grass needs that you might have. So if you're going to replace a yard, if that project is on the horizon for you, this is a good time to do it. Whether or not the grass died because of the hurricane, you had a bunch of stuff piled up on your curb for too long and that killed the grass, or if you're infested with weeds or have too much shade, or for whatever reason you lost your grass, now is an excellent time to take care of that. It's still the same process as always. Everything that's any vegetation that's there need to be sprayed with some kind of herbicide that kills all grass, non-selective herbicide, and it needs to be given a couple of weeks to die and then scraped out of there, preferably with a sod cutter. That's the easiest way to do it. And then it needs to be resodded. Ideally, you put down a good layer of fresh topsoil before you do it, and that is the process no matter what time of year you're doing it. And then lots of water. As a matter of fact, 2 inches of water. We always, I'm sure I've said this in 100 videos, but I can't say it enough to reiterate here. It's always 2 inches of water the first day you lay it, and then an inch of water per day for the first week. You've got to, and then really you kind of have to baby it for those first couple of weeks before you can kind of back off the watering. Still got to water quite a bit this time of year. It's not just so tough to keep grass fresh like it is in the summer. So that is something to keep in mind if that's on the horizon for you. A lot of people ask, well, is this a fine time of year to take on a project like this? And it absolutely is. The grass, still, especially in October and November, still has plenty of time to put down roots before it goes into dormancy. Ideally, if you can get it to put down roots before it goes dormant, that's better. So we talked a little bit about reducing water requirements. We tell everybody in the summertime, you've got to water every day for 2 weeks. This time of year it starts to be, you still need to water every day that first week, but maybe that second week you can get away with every other day, and then you kind of go to a more regular watering schedule, watering 3 days a week like you would an established lawn after that. If you do have an established lawn and you're just looking for tips here, We're getting to the season where we tell everybody year round, or anytime the grass is green and growing, the watering requirement is an inch of water per week, whether it's coming out of the sky or coming out of a hose. And that is still the case right now. We're still having plenty of warm days. The lack of humidity is actually taking some of the moisture out of the plant and out of the soil. So you do have to replenish that, but it will not be long before you need to start backing off to more like 1 inch every other week. When we get closer to dormancy, maybe that late December. Right now, currently in 2024, I would say we had a lot of rain with the hurricane and then big rains in July, and then we started drying out in August. It hasn't rained really well other than some spotty showers for the last month. You don't want to turn that water off too fast because that can bring about drought stress, but you can overwater, especially this time of year, because when you water too much this time of year, the three ingredients for bringing brown patch into your yard, which is the big ugly yellow circles that you get this time of year, are the cooler nighttime temperatures, excessive water, and excessive nitrogen. So it is possible to over fertilize. It is possible to overwater. The drier conditions, it is a fungus. So the fungus needs moisture to thrive. And so when you pull that away from it, and if you can walk that line of enough water but not too much, you don't feed that brown patch fungus. So that is something to keep in mind with water application. Another thing that October is a time for, I mentioned earlier, is fertilization. Nitrophos has the fall special fertilizer, which is the brown bag. If you'll notice the three numbers on it, I do not recall off the top of my head exactly what they are right now, but the first number is always nitrogen, and it is lower on this one. If you'll look at some of their competitors in the big box stores, they have nitrogen, that first number, north of 30. You are not trying to green up the grass this time of year. This is the time of year you are trying to feed the plant, you're trying to feed the roots and get a good healthy plant before it goes into dormancy, so that it's got plenty of nutrients stored away to come out strong in the spring. Grass is supposed to start losing its color this time of year, and a lot of people call and ask, well, what do I need to do to green my grass up? The answer is don't. You need to put out this fall special fertilizer. You're feeding that plant. You are not trying to have the greenest yard on the street this time of year. And that's not what you're shooting for. It is also a time to put out the nitrophos barricade pre-emergent. This is the time of year that we recommend doing that. I believe both of them say an October, late October, or anytime in October, November application. If I were you, I would get it put out before the second half of November, though. Sometime in the next 6 weeks is a great time to get that pre-emergent and that fall special fertilizer put out. So that is something to keep in mind as well. We do have plenty of the fall special. However, you can find it at some of the mom and pop stores as well. It's not in the big box stores. Nitrophos is a local Houston company that does this and really does a good job with producing a fertilizer that works for our part of the world here. So, and then we'll be back, of course, in the springtime. It'll be time to fertilize again, and we'll have the fertilizer that you need for, say, late February, early March. We'll be back out with the weed and feeds and the fertilizers that you'll need for springtime. So if you don't get these fertilizers out before the grass starts going dormant, say, we just never know when that first frost is going to be. But I would say if it gets to late November and you haven't fertilized, don't worry about it. Just wait till the springtime. You're wasting your money if you get too far into the season. The plant won't take up the nutrients as it goes into the dormant stage. So take care of it now, or if it's not the end of the world if you end up having to wait till spring. So the number one thing that we talk about here, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, this time of year is we look at lots of pictures of brown patch. There have been some chinch bug issues because it has gotten so dry. So people are sending us pictures, and I would say that it's about 50-50 split whether or not they've got chinch bugs or brown patch. But with these cooler nights that we're having, brown patch is bound to show up. It's just the way it is. It has been drier, which should stave off some of it, But if you're adding supplemental irrigation like you're supposed to be doing, and we're getting these cooler nights, chances are you're going to see some brown patch show up. It usually starts in the lower parts of the yard. So where you have your swale in your backyard, which is basically the lowest part of the yard that your yard uses to drain water out of, it usually starts in those because that's where the moisture stays a little bit longer. If you've lived in a house very long, a lot of times you'll notice that it pops up in the same places every year. So it's always much better to treat with the Heritage G is what we sell as a granular fungicide that we sell, that is again not available at big box stores, is available at some of the mom and pops and whatnot. But you'd want to treat with that preventatively as opposed to curatively. You have to use half the amount of the stuff is expensive. So when you put it out preventatively, you treat with half as much as you do at the curative rate. So if you've already got the stuff, you've got a bag will only cover, I'm shooting from the hip here. I want to say it's like 3,500 square feet as opposed to 7,000 square feet when you're putting it out preventatively. It's best to put it out once, like right now is a good time to put it out, and then put it out again 3 weeks later. And that pretty much guarantees the stuff won't show up in your yard. If you do start to see the yellow spots, that's fine. Just get the stuff out there as soon as you can. And you do need to use the curative rate if you see it already showing up. We'll see how much rain we get and everything. But if you're not overwatering and the rain kind of stays away, the brown patch shouldn't be horrible as it like it can be in a real wet year. If we're having a real wet fall, that's when it can really rear its ugly head. So watering schedules, especially whether or not we're talking irrigation or we're talking about the irrigation system or with a hose and a sprinkler, it is time to talk about bringing that the amount of water that you apply, bringing it back in. When we get into, like I mentioned earlier, when we get into dormancy late December, the grass can get by on about an inch of water every 2 weeks instead of an inch of water every week. But we are not there yet. I can tell you at the office here and at my house, I am still applying my inch of water per week. We have gotten hardly any help from Mother Nature in a while. And if you are not doing supplemental irrigation right now, you're probably going to start to see some chinch bugs show up. We're selling lots of sayonara right now, which is the liquid that you spray out on the chinch bugs when they show up. But the way to keep chinch bugs from showing up is to water, keep that plant good and healthy and lush and green, and chinch bugs don't show up. So those chinch bugs are looking for drought stressed grass. And so that is the way to keep them away, as opposed to having to spray them once they show up, because once they show up, they usually kill some or a lot of grass depending on how long you take to treat them. So again, we talked about fertilizing grass losing its color this time of year. Again, it's supposed to lose its color this time of year. That it's what it's grass doing its thing. Just like the leaves fall off the trees, the grass goes brown. There is no type of grass that we sell that does not go brown over the winter time. It comes out in the spring. You can overseed grass in our part of the world with ryegrass. If you see green grass in the dead middle of winter, that's what people have put out there is ryegrass seed. We do not recommend it in the springtime. Both the ryegrass usually lasts until about May when it gets too hot and it dies off, but grass starts growing, the St. Augustine starts growing March, April, and they're both, the ryegrass and the St. Augustine or Bermuda or whatever you have, are both competing for the same moisture and nutrients. So it's kind of hard on your grass. So we're not big fans of overseeding. If you want a green lawn year round, that's what it's going to take to do it. So do not over fertilize or anything like that, trying to have green St. Augustine up till the latest date that you can. You also are mowing. You can start, probably these cooler nights are going to put the brakes on grass growing. You might be able to get away once we start getting a little bit more regular cool fronts. I'm still mowing my grass once a week right now, and I foresee having to do that probably through October. However, November, second half of November gets here, if we start getting more regular cool fronts, you can probably go to every other week with your mowing. You'll notice a week's worth of growth is a whole lot less than it was, say, 6 weeks ago. The grass just grows a whole lot less when it starts cooling off, which again, it's supposed to do. It's just perfectly normal. Last thing I want to mention as far as care is core aeration. It is always a good idea to do that. The core aeration in particular, as opposed to the one that just has the machine that goes around with the spikes in it and just poking a hole in the ground, that is good, but is not near as good as the core aeration. That's the one that it's a hollow tube that goes in the ground, probably 5 inches long, and pulls up an actual core, a chunk of dirt that's in a cylinder, and they disperse around or whatever. That is what helps cut back on compaction and gets oxygen down to the roots of that plant. And it's a good idea to do that once or twice a year. And this is a good time of year to do it, again, because of those moderate temperatures when it's not so hard on the plant as like it would be in the middle of summer. So a good time to either rent one of those and do it yourself, or there are lots of services that provide that as well. So that's kind of what I have here. To recap the tips, the main thing that it's time to get out the Heritage G to keep that brown patch away. It's time to fertilize with the fall special. Start watching that water for signs that we're cooling off more regularly and backing off on the amount of water that you're putting out, but do not stop. Again, chinch bugs are a real thing right now. You never know what kind of year we're going to have. If we'd had a real wet summer and wet fall, then maybe we're not talking about chinch bugs. It is kind of weird to be talking about chinch bugs this late in the season, as a matter of fact, but they are certainly there. So keep an eye out for those ugly spots in the yard and make sure your irrigation system is hitting 100% of the yard and that everything's getting watered in weekly for sure right now. If you're looking for us online, we do have the HoustonGrassSouth.com website. We have years of information and blog posts on there. But if you would like to talk to a person, usually there are 3 or 4 of us here that are available to answer your questions Monday through Friday. We're here 8 to 5. On Fridays, we close a little bit early at 4. And that will be the schedule that we keep until next spring. So that is the best way to get our phone number is 281-431-7441. And that's definitely the best way to get a hold of us. We will be closed the week of Thanksgiving and the week between Christmas and New Year's. We're usually closed as well. Other than that, we're here to answer any questions or any grass needs that arise. Please feel free to give us a call. And thanks for listening again this morning.